Welcome everybody to the Center for Applied AI's weekly Lunchbox webinar. Just a quick request, if everybody as you join could please mute your microphones so that we don't interfere with the speaker, that would be great. My name is Ed Mellick. I'm the Director of Business Development and Responsible AI for the Center. In just a few moments, we're going to kick off with today's speaker. I'll introduce him. But first, a little bit of an introduction to the center. And we are the AI-focused part of UMBC Training Centers. We are a DC Baltimore nonprofit. And at the center, we provide a whole host of AI-related services. And as you can see in the chart here, we provide a lot of professional education and development services. We offer classes focused on a whole host of AI topics like AI and leadership, AI and technical issues, responsible AI, cybersecurity and AI as it relates to a number of federal government functions. And we have some other things listed here, certificate training we offer, boot camps, and obviously this free Lunchbox webinar. We also offer consulting services. They include a strategy, working with companies on their AI strategy and implementation. We're building out an innovation lab, and that's an exciting thing. And we also have a technical lab. We're doing research and experimentation on a number of interesting topics. One of them that's really near and dear to my heart is deep fake detection platforms. We've been doing a survey of what's out in the market, trying to get a sense of, what do they really do? Do they do what the vendors claim that they do? So a lot of exciting stuff going on, and certainly you can reach out to us at our website or by email if you want to hear more about these things. The QR code is right here on the bottom right. If you use that to access the website, you can pretty much see all of this. So now for today's presentation, we're going to be joined by Shawn Olds. He is the co-founder and CEO of Boodle AI. He's going to be demonstrating their BoodleBox tool, which is built to help teams collaborate using generative AI. And in particular, we were talking before the call about a feature called Bot Stacking, where they can combine multiple chatbots into a single, much more powerful platform. So he's going to be talking to us about that. So Shawn, thanks for joining us, and please take it away.
Thank you so much for having me. Pleasure to be here today. I do want to try and make this a little bit interactive and leave everybody with something. So I'm putting in the chat, our platform is free to sign up to. I just put the sign up link. There will also be QR codes as we go through that you could scan into as well if you want to do this from your mobile device. But if you want to see this in action or be able to follow up afterwards, signing into the platform for free will give you that option. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. And one thing I would say is, as we go through this, if there are questions, I unfortunately am not my typical big monitor, so I can't see the chat window. But Jen or Ed, if you see questions coming in the chat, would you please just interrupt me so that I can answer them as we go through? I'm happy to do so. So thank you for today. I'm going to talk to you about how you supercharge your workflow with collaborative AI. Over the summer, we have put a big focus on faculty and students, and I will talk to you about why. But obviously, this was originally built for the workforce. And you come to our website, we are AI for everyone. Quick background on myself. I started my career at West Point. I was a computer science major. I will fully concede that the languages I learned to program in, they now teach in the history of computers class. So I have a wonderful tech team who built this. And before I forget, in the lower corner there, that QR code is my LinkedIn profile. I try to publish LinkedIn at least 2 to 3 times a week on what I'm seeing in generative AI. So please feel free to reach out if you want to track a little bit more in generative AI, or if there's anything I can ever do to be helpful, please let me know. Feel free to connect there. After West Point, I went into the Army. I couldn't fly out of airplanes properly, so the Army kicked me out, and I ended up in the startup space in the late 90s. And for the past 30 years now, I have been building companies. I took a brief respite after September 11th to return to government service to do counterterrorism work, mostly in Southwest Asia and Africa, and then returned from that to go to grad school, but then went back to building companies and spent about 8 years between the Middle East and Africa doing that, and was on my way to Singapore to do venture capital work when my co-founder approached me with the idea of Boodle. So Boodle has actually been around 8 years now. I like to jokingly say we were doing AI before it became cool 2 years ago. Our original platform, which was called GuideOn, it was a predictive AI platform. But what I'm demonstrating you today is our BoodleBox platform, which is completely focused into the generative AI space. So one of the big reasons we built, I'll tell you, there's three reasons we built BoodleBox. One was at the end of last year, it was very clear there was a serious adoption issue around generative AI. There is no doubt that hundreds of millions of people logged into ChatGPT or Claude or others, and they created a haiku about their bowling team, and then they really didn't do much else beyond that. And that's because we as knowledge workers, we don't have the muscle memory yet to actually use this technology in our daily workflows. And so a lot of people at the end of last year, McKinsey cited that less than 10% of the North American workforce had actually adopted generative AI. So we wanted a tool that allowed for easier adoption. We wanted a tool that allowed for more collaboration. If you're working on a team, excuse me, and you're using ChatGPT and one of your colleagues is using, say, Claude, you two are not collaborating with generative AI. I apologize. And then last and foremost to most organizations was making sure that there was safety and security. So looking at adoption, collaboration, and security. Why weren't people adopting AI though? Well, one of the big reasons was unfamiliarity or just not understanding how it would fit into their daily workflows. There was also a belief that AI can stunt critical thinking when in fact it can actually supercharge it. And that's one of the big reasons we've made a big push into higher education. There's also a fear of over-reliance on AI and then, of course, concern around costs because typically when we buy technology platforms, we buy large enterprise licenses and it costs lots of money to the organization. And that's where generative AI, in one of the many ways it's become revolutionary, is now anybody on your team for free can log into a generative AI platform and start to kind of test it out and play with it. And so what we really started to focus on the collaborative, why collaborative Gen AI is such a game changer is one, it allows faculty, students, or work teams to be able to collaborate responsibly and work together with it. It also actually enhances critical thinking. It removes a lot of that more mundane tactical work you might have to do and allows people to think more strategically and more critically. And of course, Gen AI is very simple. People can click a button and boom, they're in asking questions. There's no long training seminars or anything else they need to go through. And then, of course, it's very affordable from very basic freemium models to even if you go to the top tier models, you're looking at anywhere from $10 to $50 a month, which given what you're getting out of the technology is not a lot of money. So and the QR code here is we provide every Tuesday a Gen AI 101 training class. And these 12 ways are what we go through in more detail than I'm going to go through here. But these are the 12 ways that we see organizations using generative AI in the first 90 days. Our Tuesday class is about 20 minutes explaining these, and then about 20 to 25 minutes of Q&A, so people can ask questions that are pertinent to them. But at a very high level, the ways we see people using it, ideation. I've got a event coming up that I need a theme for. I'm about to write a blog post I need a title for. Those things that might have taken us 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes can now literally be done in seconds. Summations, people writing their 50-page annual report that no one's going to read, but they got to get it out in an email, put it into generative AI, and you've got 6 bullets that are going into your email in about 60 seconds. Revisions, of course, I use this especially in important emails, especially if it might be a little bit contentious and I want to make sure it doesn't come across improperly. Getting the AI to rewrite it for you, giving it the instructions on exactly what you need out of it. The translation capabilities have been amazing. I was on with a nonprofit this week talking to them about how they used to take weeks to translate documents, and now they're letting the system translate it, and all they have to do is proofread it, making it much easier. Research is amazing, especially with Perplexity, because it's most up to date on the web. Recommendations, evaluations, sentiment analysis, problem solving. The most common one there, of course, is content generation. That's where most people typically kind of get into generative AI. Learning assistance and role playing. Role playing is one of the most exciting ones to me that we've added on here because it was one of the first ones where one of our clients came to us and taught us how to use our own platform. And I'll talk a little bit more about that on the role playing side. But role playing can be used in a variety of different capacities with people in different jobs. So I'm going to talk about both education and workforce on how collaborative AI is used. So in the higher education sense, as we talk to professors right now in the fall, they're going to be using it for class preparation for both the professors, but the students' class preparation as well. So professors are able to build very quick lessons plans or revise lesson plans, do course syllabi, do assignments, and the students are actually able to do their group projects using generative AI, making it much easier to collaborate and work together. The student AI literacy and responsible use obviously grows when the professors are integrating this into their curriculum. And so you've got equitable access, no one's left behind. You allow for multiple AI teamwork, and then you allow the professor to very quickly be able to evaluate the output. Again, the academic assessments and grading become much easier. Students are able to cite and share their AI work in a better way, but professors can build their rubrics using the generative AI and then very quickly apply those rubrics for a first pass at grading. And then looking at just the administrative and research tasks. So obviously universities have large administrations, but they also do a ton of research. And the ability of the generative AI lens to take a lot of that, as I mentioned before, more mundane stuff, so that the research team can spend more time thinking critically and strategically, really empowers them in that way. In work teams, some quick examples. Sales and marketing was one of the first places generative AI really caught fire because of its ability to generate copy very quickly, being able to write blogs, create social posts, do media content. All that content generation really supercharged sales and marketing teams. Sales teams can also prepare very quickly, where you may have spent an hour before prepping for a meeting for a company. You can now get that ready in about 10, 15 minutes, and then maybe spend 10, 15 minutes actually doing a role play with the person you're about to sell to before you even get on with them. So in half the time, getting much more prepared than you could have ever before generative AI. Finance teams can use this from everything from drafting letters to analyzing current trends. We work with government contracting firms that are using it to analyze RFPs and even generate RFPs. So there's a lot of organizations that when they first used generative AI, they didn't like the results they got for their RFPs or grant proposals because they said it sounded too genericized. And that's because these large language models are taking the million best grants or the million best proposals that have ever been written and providing the best of all of them. Now with the ability, and you'll see this when I show you the platform, of being able to take my best 5 proposals I've ever written and upload those as knowledge for the system to use, and then telling the system, I want to use that as a foundation. Now write me a first draft to this RFP. And in 60 seconds, having a first draft, which would have taken days to write before, but sounding more like what your organization would write. And then consultants are really enjoying this. One, it allows them to get a lot more work done for the client, but it also allows them to keep more engaged with the client because they're setting up chats with the client where the client is involved in the chat, the AI is involved in the chat, but now they're loading in all their deliverables, they're loading in all the meeting notes. So 6 months down the road at 11 o'clock at night, when a client needs an answer, they can hop in the group chat and get the answer. But the consulting firm's not left behind because they can see very quickly in the morning what the client was doing and what they were asking. These are very limited examples. We work with venture capital funds, innovation teams, law firms. There's a variety of different work teams that are able to use this technology in a variety of different ways. Now, one of the things I always like to know if I'm looking at something new, why do I want to look at this? I'm busy. I've got a lot going on. I have a pretty good tech stack right now. Why would I look at something else? One of the case studies I love to share, we had a 60-person organization that approached us. They were willing to put a 16-person pilot on for 30 days. What I typically ask organizations when they're looking at generative AI is don't expect day one to be amazing, but give it 30 days and give it 10 to 15 minutes a day. You need to build the muscle memory for this technology so that it becomes your go-to. We're just not there as knowledge workers yet. So they gave us 16 people. As you can see, as you'll see in a minute, they didn't even spend 10 to 15 minutes a day. Of these 16 people, and we had people from finance, sales, marketing, and I think, I forget what the 4th department was, but of these 16, 8 of them had never logged into ChatGPT before. By the end of the month, all 16 were using it weekly. Now, because some of them were new to it, they had only spent 27 hours on the platform. But in those 27 hours, the 16 people used 56 distinct AI helpers. And I'll show you what AI helpers look like in a minute. In those 27 hours, they documented 372 hours of productive work. So for them, that's the equivalent of a 16-person team adding 2 FTEs, or a 16-person team producing $20,000 more in productive work. And by the way, the 16-person license was a $300 license. So very significant ROI. When the CEO of this organization saw this, the next month, she put the entire 60-person organization on the platform. With that, I'm going to go into 2 case studies. First one's going to be very focused on higher ed. The second one will be very focused on people in the workforce and what they can do there. And then I want to open it up to questions. Happy to do other live kind of demonstrations if people have questions. So if you've got a phone and want to come in, you can do so here. If you're on your PC, or laptop, I will actually send you a link to come into this chat. So
You just put it in the chat, the link.
I will. Yep. Give me 1 second. So one of the features we provide, actually, I'm going to take a step back before I go into this demo, into that particular use case. Very high level of BoodleBox. Everything that you do on BoodleBox is kept entirely private unless you want to make it public. As I mentioned to you before, though, one of the key things we were trying to do was solve a problem around adoption. We all know that Instagram, TikTok, all the others, they are multi-billion-dollar programs because people like to share things. And so we wanted to give people an ability to do that. And so we created the first ever social media feed of generative AI. So these are users who created a prompt they were proud of and they wanted to share it. What it does, though, is that person who's never used generative AI can come in and go, okay, I heard of Claude before, and if I prompt it with this, then this is the result I'm going to get. And they can start to see, oh, there's an image generator called Stable Diffusion. If I prompt it with this, this is the result I'm going to get. And they can just continue down the line to see what other people are doing, how they're prompting it, and what results they get. So very much is the same way as kids, where we might have gone to the playground and learned to do the monkey bars by watching another kid do the monkey bars. We can now learn to prompt by watching and seeing how other people prompt. Now, that being said, we know at the end of last year, McKinsey, Bain, BCG, all the big firms did studies on why people weren't adopting generative AI. And the number one reason cited was a fear around prompt engineering. I don't want to prompt engineer. I don't want to learn that. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't have to force people into prompt engineering. And so one of the things that we did was we created over 1,000 AI helpers that do very specific tasks. Now, you don't have time to go through 1,000 AI helpers to figure out what's going to help you. So we built a simple recommendation engine. And so if you were to come in and say, I need to build a pivot table in Excel, and there we go. Apologize, I've got something running in the background, seems to be slowing the computer down. There we go. It's going to offer you the big platforms if you wanted it to. Oops, got to spell right. But what it's also going to tell you is, hey, there's an Excel bot that can help you with that. And I could go straight to the Excel bot to work with it. If instead what I had typed in is, I need to build a LinkedIn profile, what it's going to do is tell me there's a LinkedIn profile bot, but there's also a resume bot, a career coach bot, a job search advisor bot. So all AIs, if I'm building a LinkedIn profile, that I might need. But what's important is when I do click on one of these helpers, instead of me needing to prompt it, it is going to prompt me. It's going to ask me in a very conversational tone a series of 1 to 8 questions to elicit from me the information it needs to build a prompt. And of course, live, there we go. And so as you can see here, it's saying, hey, could you provide me with a CV or resume? And so I could upload a CV or a resume or a bio. It may ask a couple more questions, but then it's going to spit out that particular resume. Or I'm sorry, that LinkedIn profile that we asked it to build. So that's the flip scripting. And we know 70% of our users only use generative AI through our AI helpers. So 70% of our users have no idea what a quote unquote good prompt looks like because they're letting the AI helpers write it for them. All right. Now, if you went to the QR code, or I'm going to put the link in the chat right now. one of the features we have is what we call group chat. And so instead of sending you a Zoom link and needing to share my ChatGPT screen with you, what I can do is go right into the chat. And if you all click that link, if you've signed up, you will come right in. If you haven't signed up, just like Zoom, you'll need to create a username and password, but you won't be charged anything. But you will be able to jump into this chat. And in doing so, you'll have access to this chat after this call as well. So what I wanted to do here is I wanted to share how we would go about building a lesson plan, how we integrate generative AI into the lesson plan. And so I'm going to use, if you click on this link, I'll leave it there for you later. We have a Boodle U that has an instructor guide to collaborative AI that you could use. For this particular class, though, I'm going to use a Lessons of Fundamental Management. And so that document is here if you want to click on it and see it. The key is you want to start by selecting the right box and trying to figure out what's going to be the most appropriate thing for you. And then in this case, we default to Claude Sonnet 3.5. And so if I come in and I'm at Claude Sonnet 3.5, I might type the prompt, hey, suggest 10 ways to revise the lesson plan in the provided knowledge. So I've already uploaded here. I thought I had. Sorry, you're going to get to see it live. My apologies. All right, you're going to get to see the full process. My apologies. So here's the lesson plan. If I simply come here and I download this, and so it has been saved here to my hard drive as Lessons in Fundamental Management. I come back into our chat and I'm going to attach it. So I go to my computer, I go to downloads, I find the Lessons in Fundamental Management, and I ask it to upload it. And so now it's uploading it into my knowledge bank. And as you can see here, I have a bunch of previously uploaded work in my knowledge bank. Once it's uploaded in the knowledge bank, and by the way, from a security and safety perspective, everything you do with us gets loaded into our vector database. We don't dump it right into one of the large language models. It gets loaded into our vector database, and because we're not building models, we don't train on your data. So your data is protected, and we don't sell it, share it, anything. We built our terms of service the same way that CRMs and Dropbox builds theirs. Your data is yours, and we can only do with it what you ask us to. So you can see here, it's now uploaded. I've attached it. And now I'm going to ask the generative AI to suggest 10 ways that we can go forward with this. And you will start to see it spitting out different ideas. Now, one of the key things to remember is whatever's coming out of generative AI, for those of you who have not been using it, is that these are first drafts. And it's going to get some things wrong, but it may get some things right. And so the next thing I may ask it is, okay, can you suggest a revision to the lesson plan that supports student responsible collaboration with generative AI? And so now again, just talking to Claude, asking Claude to be helpful to me. Then if I want, and this is where we can do something you can't do with other platforms, is as it finishes up, if someone in this call says, hey, Shawn, that's kind of cute, but I'm a ChatGPT user and I bet ChatGPT could do a better job, we can bring ChatGPT into this conversation. And so now I can just simply ask ChatGPT to, evaluate and revise the above. And now ChatGPT has all the context from this conversation, and it's able to go through and evaluate it and provide us some other ideas on what we could do.
And Shawn, basically that's building on what was already provided by Claude, right?
Absolutely. And this is one of the big advantages of, like, I will on a daily basis look at something, have ChatGPT give me feedback, I'll make the edits and changes, and then in the same conversation, I will have Claude look at it. And if it's really important, I may have Gemini or Llama look at it. And so it's like having three geniuses look at something before you ever take it out for public consumption in any way. And so as you can see here, ChatGPT came back with some ideas in what it would do and how it would change it. And
Is this
so
basically the same thing as bot stacking?
we've stacked two bots on top of each other. I'm going to show you more, I won't say complex, but more involved bot stacking. But it is definitely something that is, you've stacked ChatGPT now, or you stacked, ChatGPT on top of Claude. And then if I want to go back and I've got all this information above, I can go back into Claude, which I prefer, and I may ask it just to summarize the thread so far. You know, if I want to have people, if they're not going to read through everything, but they want to get kind of a summary of where we are today, I can have it do that as well. Questions there? I'm going to pause and see if there's any questions. And so here I've got a summary. If I was working with another professor, or I wanted to talk to someone in the department, they don't necessarily have to read the whole thing, but they could. One of the other features I could do, though, is I invited you all to this chat. But if for some reason I was doing this on my own, I hadn't invited anyone to the chat, but I wanted a colleague to look at this. If you were sitting in ChatGPT right now, what you would do is take a screenshot of this and you would send it over. But you wouldn't be privileged to any of the previous work I had done. What we allow you to do is I can come in now and I can create a box to save my work. And so let's call it our Maryland box. And when I do so, I can come back into this chat now. And down here, I can keep it. And so I tell it that I want it to go into my Maryland box. But here's the key. I can enable the threading so that you can see all the work that I've done. And if I weren't in a group chat, I could also allow you to continue the chat. I could save it and pass it off to you, and you could pick up all my context. And that becomes a very valuable feature where your colleague who likes what you've done doesn't have to go to their own instance of ChatGPT and start all over again. They can pick right up with the conversation and continue it on with all the context behind it. And they can pick the LLM of their choice. If they want to use ChatGPT, they could. If they want to hop over to Llama, they could do so as well.
So, Shawn, a question. Could you somehow create a bot or do something that makes BoodleBox remember everything you've done? Because I ping all these, Grok and Perplexity, and they vary in whether they retain searches I've done in the past or not. Grok seems to log you out, and when you come back on, there's nothing there. Is there a way that you can keep all that stuff so if you a week later, a month later, you can go back and say, "Whoa, what was the result of that before?"
Absolutely. So Ed, it was one of the reasons I mentioned consulting firms really like what we're doing, because what they've done is they have multiple chats running for their team. But with the client, they have one chat of truth that is engaged with the client. So it may be the McKinsey IBM chat at the top. And what they do is they load in there all the meeting notes, all of the deliverables. So it does a couple of things. 6 months down the road, when a new consultant comes on board, and I was a consultant early in my career, I went into a job the first week. I had to pull people for an hour each to sit down and get me up to speed. Now, when I walk in day one, I just fork that chat off, and I can start and engage it and ask it anything I want, and I'm up to speed.
That's
The
a
other
very
nice,
thorough audit trail.
exactly. And the other nice thing is the client, 6 months down the road, has a question at 11 o'clock at night. They don't have to track down one of the consultants. They can go right into the chat and they can ask that question. The consulting firms have also told us one of the reasons they like it. Every consulting firm, at some point, the engagement ends. And you want to figure out, how do I get that client back into another engagement? Well, now they can give this chat to the client. They can keep it open so that 3 months later, when the client has a question that is pertinent to a problem they're having, they come into the chat and ask it. They're in there with the consultants they were working with. And so one, they may or may not get the answer they need, but the consultant is definitely able to see the problem their former client was having and is now able to call them up and say, hey, here's how we could solve this for you. And so it allows for a little bit more stickiness with their clients as well. Also works well, Ed, is career coaching. If you were career coaching someone, you could have a chat and everything stays in that chat as you coach that individual. And so also kind of could alleviate some of the work you have to do, right? If they're going to ask you repetitive questions, there's no reason you need to get on the phone for a repetitive question when they could just ask the chat. They'll come to you for the higher level stuff that's not in the chat, but that repetitive stuff, why get you on the phone for that? Does that answer your question, Ed?
Yep, thank you.
Easy. Any
Someone complimented you on your use of RAG agents.
It's amazing. I will tell you though, RAG has its limitations, so it is not perfect. So, if you came to me 6 months from now, Ed, and you and I were in a chat, and you go into that chat and you ask it, "Hey, how many times was the word Kansas mentioned?" It's not going to probably get it right. RAG's just not good at that. So one of the abilities we will add next month is the ability in a secure format to be able to load entire context in. And when you do load entire context in, it's of course a lot more accurate.
So Shawn, I have a question real quick. So when you start one of these and you put in your first prompt, and then if you're switching through the different bots, do you ever find like, just because they work differently? Like before I heard of your platform, like I'd go out and compare, like you might put your prompt in one and put your prompt in another and compare, since they're sort of like, if I'm understanding right now, when you switch, it's actually reading the response from one bot, right? Like if you put Chat GPT, it gives you a response. Then if I switch to Claude, is it reading the response from Chat GPT and going off of that? Does that make sense?
Actually, it's so funny. Literally just had this question with my chief data. There's a new feature we're introducing for higher ed, a concept of folders. And as we were testing the grading rubrics, we ourselves were testing what would ChatGPT say with this grading rubric, what would Claude. The problem is it does. It has the previous context of how the previous ones were graded. So one of the things we realized we're probably going to need to add at some point is an ability for if a professor wants multiple inputs without cross polluting, is basically being able to select a prompt or put in a prompt and then select to send it to multiple bots at once, so they all give an independent answer. That doesn't exist right now, but you're absolutely right. If it's in a thread and you ask ChatGPT, it's pulling everything from this thread. Whereas if you went to ChatGPT and typed in that very similar prompt anew, it would give a different answer because it's got a different context it's working with.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Shawn, it would be accurate to say that the feature is a don't stack the bots feature.
Yeah, if you don't want to pollute it, you don't want to stack the bots. Correct. Typically, bot stacking, I've used it. Where I find bot stacking to be most useful is in a particular task I need to get done. And so I know these 6 bots will get me X. I start a new conversation every single time, but it's these 6 bots in a row will get me X, which used to take me an hour and a half, and I can now get it in 10 minutes.
So Shawn, someone asked a question, Topher, you might want to look at in the chat and answer. He said, could you save the same chat in multiple boxes and include a continuation of the chat thread?
Could you save the same chat in multiple boxes and include a continuation? No. So a chat gets saved to one box, but you can continue that chat as many times as you want it, if that makes sense. So you get, for instance, a professor could get a bot stack, get to a point where he's really happy with something and knows that the students could grow it from here. He could take that chat and save it into a folder, and then each student could fork off that conversation and have their own, call it choose your own adventure, if you will. But they could all take the baseline of what the professor had established and then go from there. Or a consultant could do the same thing, variety of different things.
So Shawn, thank you for answering all these questions. I want to make sure you get to that bot stacking. So
Sure.
we'll let you move on.
Absolutely. So the next one I'm going to share with you is career transition. This is something we actually did for the Green Beret Foundation. And so I'm going to share this chat with everybody. Copy link. For those of you that are doing it on your phone, this is the QR code. For those of you who are, where's the chat? Give me one second. I got to stop share for a second. For those of you we're doing this on computer. I just shared the group chat. And so we've got Lieutenant Dan, and we're going to help Lieutenant Dan find a job. And what we did with Green Beret Foundation, we asked them to walk us through the entire, from first onboarding a person getting out of the military to them finding a job. I'm not going to walk you through all of that because what we did for them took about 20 minutes. But I'm going to walk through some of the first initial steps just to show you what would typically take more than a month for them. So one of the first things that we have is what's called and I showed you this before, a LinkedIn profile bot, right? So when I go to the LinkedIn profile bot and I bring them up, the LinkedIn profile bot introduces itself, and it's going to ask for CV, resume, or bio as I had before. I'm going to say, here is my bio. And I just did a quick bio on Lieutenant Dan. And so there it is. And so now what I can do is, one of the first things I may notice out of that is, hey, there's a lot of military jargon in there. And we know getting out of the military, everybody tells us, hey, get rid of that stuff, try and make it less so. And so the first thing I may ask the LinkedIn profile bot to do is tell it there's too much military jargon and can you get rid of some of that? And boom, it's going to start spitting out and getting me a better LinkedIn profile that doesn't have so much jargon in it. There we go. Now what I can do is, after I do a LinkedIn profile, what's the next thing I need? I need a resume, right? And so I can just go straight to the resume bot. And this is the bot stacking. I'm now stacking a resume bot on top of a LinkedIn bot and saying, create a resume based on that profile. And now the resume bot is off to the races and doing that. And then again, and I showed you this feature before, is, in this case, the resume bot's going to ask a bunch of questions. I am what type of job or industry? Base the answers to these on my bio above. And it should actually use those. Sometimes you do have to handhold generative AI. It doesn't always quickly pick up things. And there we go. We got a resume spit out. I showed you this feature before, but it's just further bot stacking. Is, let's say I trust ChatGPT better. Can you improve this resume? And boom, we're off to the races on the resume. And now, next bot stacking I can do as that finishes up is, which bot do I want to use next? I'll use the career coach bot. And tell it, I'm Lieutenant Dan. What job should I consider in light of my injuries? I like being outdoors. I like being my own boss. And let's see what it comes back with. And usually, there we go. Usually it streams a little bit better, but hey, Lieutenant Dan, pleasure. You could be an outdoor tour guide, agricultural, drone operator, small scale, environmental consultant, stock day trader. And so interestingly, and this is a Jen, I think you were asking, do you get different answers at different times? When we did this 6 months ago with the Green Beret Foundation, the number one thing was actually shrimp boat captain, interestingly. So the AIs will come out with different things. And it's actually something that frustrates a lot of people, is that people will try something on their own, then they'll tell their colleague, but the colleague gets a completely different answer. The ability to keep the consistent chat going, everybody gets to work from the same sheet of music. And you're not getting multiple varying answers from different people within the same organization. So let's say we like the outdoor tour guide. We're going to go with number one. I can now come over and what I can do though is I want to build a job search plan, right? So I can, let's do this, whoops. At job search plan bot. So I just switch it up to that and I ask it to build a job search plan. And so, Ed, this is getting into very deep bot stacking. We've now probably on our 4th or 5th bot that we're doing, putting it on top. But again, this is something I could do once as a career coach. And you can see it came up with an initial plan. This is something I could do once as a career coach and then be able to give that bot stack and share that bot stack with anybody I'm coaching and tell them to go through the same process.
Okay. You could save it and run that sequence, with anyone else.
I could save it. They could see what I've done, and then they could do it on their own.
Okay. It
So
might be something, a future feature to consider, it can save that sequence. Yeah.
So you're getting into agents and being able to employ agents to do things, and that is definitely on the roadmap.
Is there any way for you to run simultaneous, ask a single question to 2 or more chatbots, and then the system compare the answers, or just at least view the answers?
No, I mean, technically the way you would do it is you would, and I've done this, I open 2 chats and I'll ask in the first chat, ChatGPT, in the second chat, I ask Claude. We do want to introduce a feature where I can put a prompt in and then select multiple bots to reply simultaneously to it.
Yeah, this is great. Very, very compelling, very elegant platform. Tom, I don't know if you have any questions or we have any other questions from attendees. If anybody has something, speak now.
I had one more, Shawn, which is of the collection of bots. I forget I think you mentioned how many bots there are. Are they all sort of public bots? Or has BoodleBox trained their own model?
We don't train our own model. So we want people comfortable the data they're putting in is not getting trained on. It gets, technically or not technically, but in a way it gets trained, within your chat because we're providing it more context. And so for you in your instance, it's getting smarter. But if you are a career, like literally this morning, I've already had calls with 2 different career coaches. If they are independently, and they're both independently using ChatGPT, everything they upload into ChatGPT is using. And so it's benefiting every other career coach out there. The career coaches that come onto BoodleBox, whatever BoodleBox learns in their instance stays siloed to them. So the other career coach on our platform is not going to benefit from their learnings. He will benefit or she will benefit from their own learnings, but not from others. And we wanted to provide that sense of security to people that their data, their proprietary learnings are theirs and no one else's.
Privacy is something people are extremely interested in.
Absolutely. And it's just been part of our DNA for 8 years. We knew dealing in a space where you're using a lot of crucial data as you do with predictive AI, that people were going to be very concerned about it. And so we wanted to build a very stringent terms of service that made people comfortable what they were getting and what others were not getting.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, yes, I have one.
Go ahead.
Please.
Yeah, you have in here we upload our documents and our documents can be referred by this. And you mentioned that it's not using RAG, so I would like to understand how what tech stack you are using to get the context from the documents as a developer.
I'm sorry. So we load it into a vector database. And then as we need information, because as you know, most organizations, they don't need to shove everything they have in there. There's certain things they need.
Yes.
So we can use RAG as people start interrogating their data. We use RAG to pull what we need. When we do have to put information into a large language model, we've negotiated corporate APIs with all of the models. And in the corporate API contract, they are strictly forbidden from using any of the data to train on it. The further step we're going to do is AWS is launching something called Amazon Bedrock, which allows us to actually run all our own instances of the models, except for ChatGPT. So come the end of the year, we'll actually be running our own instances of Claude and Llama and Gemini and and Stable Diffusion and all these others. so that it won't even go through a corporate API that is protected. It'll just go straight into our own versions on AWS.
Okay, got it. So vector database and retrieving from the relevant information from those databases, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, all, I think this has been great. I'm looking to share something here on the screen. See if that actually happens. So I wanted to mention a couple things. Sampling of upcoming classes. These are some of the short form classes, we call them. First of all, thank you, Shawn, for the presentation. This was excellent, very compelling. We've got some classes we figured we would offer or show that we're offering this month or early in September, which if you scan the QR code here, you could sign up for these. These are half-day classes. One focuses on AI and leadership. The other is fundamentals of AI. And then the terrain model that was presented last week, we have a class in that. That it may not be on the website when you click through. There was an issue today we had, so we're going to get that up as soon as we can possibly do it. Also, just save the dates. These are upcoming. I hope I'm not blocking the screen with images here, but if you click through here, we've got two Lunchbox webinars scheduled in the future. One is going to be a gentleman named Shane Emmons is from Swept AI, and he's going to be talking about, they have a platform that allows people to audit their AI platforms, and they can search for critical issues, security flaws, violations of best practices. So that's going to be on August the 1st. And then on August the 8th, we have a gentleman named Joseph Thibault coming in. He's from Cursive Technologies, and they have a very novel approach for addressing the problem of plagiarism. Sort of a first of its kind, very unique platform where they're looking for where AI is used in student writing instead of simply classifying text. You got to see that demo. It's very compelling, and it's something that, if the students start actually using it, there will be a motivation there for them to use it because it helps them to write better. So the QR code is there that you can scan and click through. So I always invite you to join the Slack community. That's the QR code right there. You can email us directly if you'd like at info@c4ai.ai. And then certainly you can visit the website at c4ai.ai as well. That basically concludes the webinar. Thank you again, Shawn, for what you did. Have a great day, everybody, and we'll look forward to seeing you all the next time.